Welcome in, Jesse Schewel here from jesseschewel.com. Today we're going to preview the Saturday kickoff for week 2. But before we get to that, I've got to remind you, smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Please offer your comments below this video. Week 1 was fairly successful. I had five premium picks. Went 3-0 with my sides, 1 and 2 with my totals. I was trying to take advantage of those under trends. We all know that 12 of the first 18 games in week 0 went under the total. And we got the new rules with the clock stoppages. I thought I was going to exploit some soft lines. And I was on the wrong end of a couple totals, which is no big deal because you don't pay a ton of juice to bet totals. And I will point out that for those of you guys who listen to the shows, in particular, Gambler's World Winner's Circle show with Sean Higgs and Ross Benjamin, I did mention that I thought with the clock stoppages, the advantage would be more so in the first half than the second half, and I would look at betting first half unders. And that's exactly what I've done this week. I've got 3 totals again this week. All 3 of my totals last week went under in the first half. I was able to capitalize on that at sportsmemo.com. But there's a few sites, including gamblersworld.net, that do have first half totals available. And I'm hoping that this trend continues of first half unders presenting a little bit more value with the new rules and the clock stoppages. But obviously, we got to pick some winners here, too. I got a game of the year on the Texas-Alabama game. That one should be exciting. I've also got plays on a few other games, but today we're going to discuss a few games that everybody's talking about. The big game is Nebraska at Colorado, and according to some sources, more action, as of a couple days ago, more action on this Nebraska-Colorado game than the entire NFL slate combined at some sports books. Now we're closer to the weekend, so that NFL money has probably come in now, but there's a lot of excitement about this Deion Sanders, Colorado Buffaloes. Deion's boy throws for 500 yards and 4 touchdowns against TCU. They had 4 receivers with over 100 yards receiving. It does look like there's something cooking in Colorado, but there's a big sharp versus public debate here this week. A lot of people feel that the sharps will be on Nebraska. The public is backing Deion and the Buffaloes. And I'm sort of torn in that debate. I think that it's easy to consider yourself sharp and just go against the grain. But at the end of the day, Nebraska is a team that's often found a way to lose. And they found a way to lose again in week 0 against Minnesota. I had Nebraska in that game, cashed the ticket plus 7.5, but was not happy with the play of Jeff Sims. And I wouldn't want to have a side in this game. But if I was forced to pick a side, I'd probably have to go with the team that has a quarterback that just threw for 500 yards and was essentially perfect. He basically pitched a perfect game, Shedeur Sanders. I don't think he's doing it again this week against Nebraska. I don't think Colorado can stop the run against Nebraska. I do think Nebraska is the quote-unquote sharp side, but you know what? The sharp side doesn't win every time. Somebody gave me hell last night because I picked the under in the Colorado TCU game on a show, and not even a premium pick, but just on a show. They said you have to admit you're wrong and all this stuff. I said, man, I lose 40% of the bets I make, and if I lose 40% of the bets I make for the rest of my life, I'll retire as the greatest ever to do this thing. You're looking to hit in the 55% range. If you're really great at what you do, 57, 58%. There's a few guys that have a few seasons of 60% and up. Anybody that claims to be hitting 70, 80% all the time either doesn't bet on very many games or they're just lying. So it's not an exact science, but yeah, I'm not with the quote unquote sharps here. I think this game could go either way. I think Nebraska is going to have success running the ball, but if they need if they need Jeff Sims to step up and throw the ball, they could be in big trouble. And Colorado appears to have an offense that can put points on the board in a hurry. I'm expecting it to be somewhat of a pace war. Colorado, with their new offensive coordinator, they're going to look to go up tempo, do things very fast, and Nebraska should want to counter that and slow everything down, play a possession game, keep running the ball, keep the ball out of Shedeur Sanders' hands, and we'll see who wins that battle. But what the situation I just described would play well for a first half under if you see Nebraska trying to hold the ball and sit on it to keep it out of the hands of the Colorado offense. A couple possessions, they could burn a lot of time off the clock. Nebraska could, and I don't expect Colorado to have a lot of success stopping Nebraska's running game. They gave up over 7 yards per carry against TCU last week, and while I had a play on the under in that game, you could say I was wrong, but what I actually said, exactly word for word, was that I thought that TCU would be able to run the ball all over the Colorado defense, that they would be ill-advised to have quarterback Chandler Morris come out and sling the ball around the yard against a Deion Sanders coached secondary when they don't need to do that. Keep it simple, pound the rock, go home with a win. And, big mistake by the coaching staff at TCU. I mean, they failed to exploit the advantage they did have. Their quarterback throws a couple ill-timed interceptions, and they end up losing their home opener. So, in a way, I was wrong, but in a way, I was right. And I will mention that the total did go under for the first half. So, my official recommendation for this game was under for the first half in TCU and Nebraska. Sorry, Colorado and Nebraska. Getting a little bit sidetracked there. Another game that everybody is talking about is Wisconsin. The public is all over Washington State in this game, and I guess it's easy to see why. Washington State's coming off of a big win last week. They went into Colorado State and won in a rout. They looked very good doing so. But what do you learn when a team beats Colorado State? Perhaps not muck and fudge. You're expected to beat Colorado State. They were a double-digit favorite in that game. Colorado State's got some issues. And so why? Why would people really like Wazoo as the home dog here, getting just 5 points? Well, if you look at last year's meeting, the Cougars went into Madison and they upset the Badgers as a 17-point underdog. They ended up winning that game 17-14. So it's easy to think, well, they beat them outright last year. Now they're at home. They're getting points. But if you dig a little deeper, they didn't really beat them last year. Wisconsin beat themselves. The Badgers outgained them 401 to 253 in total yards. They had an edge of 22-10 in first downs. It was Graham Mertz, and Graham Mertz is no longer with the Badgers. You got Mordecai coming over from SMU. Big improvement at quarterback, big improvement at head coach. This is a new look Wisconsin team, and perhaps you can't really call it revenge because there's some new faces in the mix, but it is a chance for Wisconsin to avenge last year's loss. And 5 points looks awful short to me. Let's look at Cam Ward. He was sacked 46 times last year. That was a high in the Pac-12. So the Cougars have some real problems keeping him upright, and I don't really think they've done anything to address that. He wasn't great against Wisconsin last year. Threw for 200 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks on 17 of 28 passing. If he plays like that here in this game, I don't like Wazoo's chances. I think this line should probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 7.5. It is overreaction week, and I think people are overreacting to week one's results. I like Wisconsin as the 5-point favorite on the road here in this matchup. Moving on, we will look at the Pac-12 after dark. Excuse me, a little bit under the weather. Too much partying after a successful week one. We got Stanford at USC. The Trojans are laying a whopping 29.5 points. Guess how many games the Trojans won by more than 29.5 points last year? In the Pac-12, they had 10 Pac-12 games. They won one of them by 30 or more points. And it wasn't against Stanford. They played a fairly close game against Stanford last year. Stanford, on the other hand, 3-9 last year. Terrible season. One of the worst teams in the Pac-12, sure. They had a brutal schedule, though. 5 of their 9 losses came against top 25 teams. They really didn't have any soft spots on their schedule. It was just a murderer's row from start to finish. And they got rid of their coach. They got a new coach, which could breathe some more life into this program. They still have an NFL caliber tight end and some potential NFL caliber running backs. Stanford's not a contender in the Pac-12, but are they 30 points worse than a USC team that doesn't even bother to play defense? I'm a little skeptical, and history certainly is on the side of Stanford here. I've heard people, the truth out of Detroit likes Wisconsin in this one. Well, I'm with you, the truth. But yeah, the history definitely favors Stanford. Stanford's actually won 5 of the last 10 head-to-head meetings outright, and not one of the 5 losses during that span came by a margin of 29.5 points. We saw USC beat, San Jose State in week 1 by 28, I believe, or maybe it was even a little less, yeah. But not by 30 anyways, by fewer than 30, their week 1 win at home over San Jose State. So you have to ask yourself, is Stanford weaker than San Jose State? I wouldn't say so. I'm not overreacting to Stanford's win at Hawaii. I liked Stanford in that game from the get-go. I wasn't surprised. I thought the line movement in that game was it was a mistake by the bookmaker. That was the overreaction. Stanford went into Hawaii as a 10-point favorite, got bet down to 3, and after they left, you thought, well, it probably looked a lot better with Stanford as a 10-point favorite. And yeah, Stanford let Hawaii score some points and yada, yada, yada. But sure, I think USC is going to go off for 50, 55, and Stanford's going to score their 25 to 30, and USC wins by, let's say, in the neighborhood of 25 points. But 29.5 is, I'll take those points. Give me the 29.5 with the Stanford Cardinal. I just haven't seen enough defense from USC to ask them to cover point spreads like that. Not really lighting up the chat there. What else can we discuss today? I did hear on another show somebody talking about the Colorado-Nebraska game, saying they expect it to be a close game. The sharp money is on Nebraska. They think it's going to go down to the wire, and they're going to take Nebraska plus the points because it's going to be close. And I thought to myself, well, in a close game, going down to the wire, you want the quarterback that threw 3 picks last week instead of the guy that threw for 500 yards? I can't get down with that logic. Like I said, I'm not taking a side in this game. But if you absolutely force me to take a side, I'd join the public and I'd go against the sharps, and I would take Colorado in this one. I've seen enough games that Nebraska has blown over the last few years, and I understand it's a new coach, and I did have Nebraska in week 1, but I wasn't happy with what I saw from Sims. Oklahoma over is a lock. Yeah, I mean, I think SMU is going to get some points on Oklahoma, and this Stanford USC game I'm talking about sort of fits the same mold for the SMU Oklahoma game. Can Oklahoma's defense come up with enough stops for them to cover that spread? And I'm not so sure. It's kind of a public play. The line's been bet down. There's a lot of money on SMU, but I wouldn't be surprised if SMU keeps that game to within single digits as well, Paul. But yeah, I didn't I didn't watch Oklahoma's game in week 1. So I'm mostly going on what I saw from Oklahoma last year, but it looks very much the same. All offense, no defense. And SMU is a sneaky team that's got a lot of returning production. Sure, they lost Mordecai, but the guy that they've got in there, Preston Stone, is a highly touted recruit that at one point in his career was expected to do great things. And now he's in a pretty good situation. He's coming off of a great first start with the team. And can he pile up some points on an Oklahoma defense that I don't have a lot of faith in? I think he can. I think he can. So back to this under trend. As I said, 12 of the first 18 games in week 0 failed to reach the total. So a lot of people were talking about this new rules with the clock continuing to tick regardless of first downs. It's going to affect games where teams run the ball a lot, slower paced teams that play air raid and fast pace, like Colorado, probably won't be as affected by the new rules. But it looked like it was really trending toward the under early. The bookmakers made a bunch of adjustments. You saw totals that were 50 get bet down to 44.5 right away after you saw the first results in week 0. Then the first Saturday of the season for week 1 turned out the overs started hitting. And in the end, I believe overs hit at a rate of 53% overall throughout week 0 and week 1, which would lead somebody to believe that there is no trend, there is no under trend with the new clock stoppages. But I will beg to differ on that one. Of course, that number of 53% of the games going over would partially be due to the corrections that the bookmakers made, bringing a lot of those totals down 4, 5, and 6 points in some cases. So they go over when they potentially could have gone under if the bookmakers didn't react. And from what I've seen this week, the bookmakers have gone right back to totals that you'd expect to be in the 50s or in the 50s. They're not chopping those numbers down the way they were after week 0. And the one trend that people didn't seem to pick up on so much was the first half unders. There's no urgency in the first half to catch up. You're playing the first half. You start out. You try to establish the run. You're not going to abandon the run in the first quarter. You're not going to try to catch up in the first quarter. You're still feeling each other out, right? It's like a heavyweight fight. You're feeling each other out. So you got both teams trying to establish the run. Meanwhile, the clock is ticking. And at the end of the half, you don't need to take outrageous risks to try and get in the end zone before the half to tie the game. If you're deep in your own territory and you don't want to risk turning the ball over, you're going to play more conservative in the final 2 minutes of the first half than you are in the final 2 minutes of the game. If you're losing by a touchdown in the final 2 minutes of the game, you got to go balls to the wall to get that score. In the first half, you don't need to do that. And we did see an awful lot of late scoring pushing totals over. There was a lot of last-second touchdowns that were the difference between overs and unders in week 1 on last Saturday. So my advice is that's something to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on the totals this week, and in particular, keep an eye on those first half totals. And I think there is still some value there. I forgot there is no such thing as a lock. There certainly is no such thing as a lock. I've never pretended there is. Apparently, a lot of people still believe in locks, and guys like Vegas Dave do pretty well selling locks and whales and elephants and all such things. But you don't get any of that here. No locks. No locks from me. What else can we discuss here? Texas, Alabama. I mean, that's a huge game. I do have my game of the year on that game, so I don't want to get too deep into that one. But that's another one that they did play last year. I don't know how much we can read into that game, but let's look at the total. Opened at 54.5. I believe this is a game that could be affected by these new rules because I don't think either of these teams are going to be in too much of a hurry to take many risks in this game, especially early on, especially the first half. I would say for the first half of this Texas-Alabama game, really expected to be like a heavyweight fight where they come out trying to establish the run. I expect both defenses to play well, get stops. There's going to be a few punts. So you might want to look at that first half under in the Texas-Alabama game. Oh, we got some the Baylor and Utah game is another one. Big overreaction, potential overreaction. Utah wins big over Florida in week 1, and the public was all over Florida in that game. I was doing shows. I had Utah, and I gave out Utah as a play on a lot of the shows I was doing. And the SEC fans just come for you if you bet against their teams in the comment section. And Florida fans were all over me, really upset about me picking Utah. And of course, it was a rout from start to finish. I mean, Utah doesn't lose a lot of home games, and they are back-to-back Pac-12 champs. So no surprise for me. So for me, I kind of like Utah again this week. Of course, the line opened at 5.5. The value's gone by the time it gets to 7.5, where it sits now. But if you like Utah, are you really overreacting? Because I think the results in week 1 should have been expected. So you're not really reacting to results that were expected. The surprise was Baylor struggling against Texas State and losing that game outright. And I guess we'll find out how much of that was Texas State and how much of that was Baylor. But, I mean, Baylor wasn't very good last year, to be honest with you. Blake Shapen was pretty brutal last year. And their backup quarterback comes in. I don't know a ton about him. He wasn't great backing up Shapen. But, I mean, it's a tough spot for him making his first start against a team like Utah, top 10 ranked team. Conference champion. Yeah, I don't like Baylor's chances at all in this game. And I know this is another one, public versus sharp. A lot of the sharps are going to be on Baylor as a home dog, getting 7.5. It's hard to pass up. And I do like the theory of betting on backup quarterbacks. Texas A&M, you say? I agree with that. Pardon me. Been partying a little bit too hard lately. Must be all the winning. But yeah, Texas A&M, that's a good call. I mean, they had the best pass defense in the country last year. Their defense was solid. It was their offense that was just brutal. Poor quarterback play. But they have themselves a new quarterback. It remains to be seen if this kid's the real deal. He had a good game in week 1. I mean, this game against Miami is going to be the test. If they look like the real deal here in Miami, then I'm ready to get down on Texas A&M. I mean, they're returning a ton of production from a team that came into last year expected to contend for an SEC title. I think people forget about that. People focus on their struggles last season and don't focus enough on the fact that they were so highly touted. At the end of the day, they did go into Tuscaloosa and play a 24-20 game against Alabama last year. The games they did lose, they weren't getting blown out. Their biggest problem was they couldn't score, and that's one player can change that if it's a quarterback. And yeah, Texas A&M could be the real deal this year. I'm ready to buy in on that. I think Miami though could be a lot better this year. I did mention on one of the shows I was doing with Sean Higgs that they came into week 1 of this season, or week 0 even, 1-9 against the spread. And they were playing, I guess, Miami O, was it? And they were, a 17-point favorite or something along those lines. And I looked at it like, well, you got a team that's expected to win by 3 scores, but they're 1-9 against the spread in their last 10. Clearly, this number has to be kept artificially low based on that betting trend that they've only covered one of their last 10 games. Because whatever number you're going to give me on a team that's only covered one of their last 10 games is going to be significantly lower than what you think it should actually be as a bookmaker. I mean, that's how you're going to price a team that has failed to cover 9 of their last 10. And it is the second year under Mario Cristobal, and I like Cristobal. I liked him with the Ducks. Remember, he did go into the Horseshoe and beat the Buckeyes when he was with Oregon. There's not a lot of Pac-12 teams that go and beat the best teams in the Big Ten in their own building. So Cristobal is the kind of coach that can turn things around. I think it's a significant upgrade from the guys they've had in recent years. So don't be surprised if the U is a little bit better this year. I guess kickoff is coming in about half an hour's time. Do I have any early action? I guess I do have some action in that Utah Baylor game, and if I haven't given it away already, I did grab Baylor at -5.5 on an early line. Don't mind giving that out on the show because I grabbed Utah -5.5, and obviously I saw an advantageous line, thinking they should be the real line should be 7.5. I mean, Utah is at least a touchdown better than Baylor, even without Baylor's issues. Even if Baylor had beaten Texas State last, and I think that's the way you got to bet it. You got to bet it as if Baylor beat the crap out of Texas State last week. Would my mind be any different? No, not at all. Utah is, like I said, the better team. They're ranked, 12th or 13th overall right now. Back-to-back defending Pac-12 champs. And you talk about backup quarterbacks. I hear a lot of people talking about Cam Rising and Bryson. A lot of people are calling him Brandon Barnes because they're getting confused with the other guy, Brandon Rose. It's Bryson Barnes. And he played once last year, played a solid game, clean, no picks, no turnovers, fairly accurate throwing. They haven't really asked him to do a lot, but what they ask him to do when he comes in at quarterback, he does it well, and they've won both his starts, one last year and then in week 1. I mean, I personally think he's more than capable. He's been with the team for years, so he's been coached by Whittingham and the coaching staff at Utah. I mean, I certainly think he's going to be better than the backup for Baylor. And you know, people have misconceptions about backup quarterbacks because they say, "Oh, Cam Rising." Well, guess what? Cam Rising was a backup quarterback before he was the starter. He came in and immediately was lights out. And every backup quarterback that comes in has the potential to do just that. And you know, I mean, you wouldn't want to say it's better than 50-50, but it's certainly a possibility, and it's something that you need to account for. So you can't just assume that since a team's got a backup quarterback that they're going to struggle. But one thing that you might want to look at is when Utah has Cam Rising or Bryson Barnes, their offensive game plan might be a little more conservative when Bryson Barnes is starting at quarterback than it would be if Cam Rising was starting at quarterback. And the same might be said for Baylor when Blake Shapen is playing an experienced he's not great, by the way. I'm not a big Shapen fan, but at least he's got a ton of experience playing for Baylor. When his replacement comes in, is their offensive game plan going to be dumbed down and a little more conservative to accommodate for his lack of experience? And I think the answer to that is going to be yes. So if you start putting 2 and 2 together, you got 2 backup quarterbacks facing off against each other. What does that say about the total? If both teams are going to dumb down their game plan and be a little more conservative, you might want to be looking at unders in situations such as those. just a word to the wise. You guys are being kind in the comments section. Nobody's called me a hack yet. I was kind of hoping somebody would come in because when I do the show with Ross and Sean every week on Winner's Circle, like I say, it's unavoidable. You got to give a matchup between two teams. You got to pick one of them, and whoever you pick against, their fan base just comes after you, especially SEC teams. And for me, I'm usually betting against SEC teams because there's so much public money backing those SEC teams. We saw it with Florida in week one. I thought it was ridiculous that line got bet down from 9.5 to 3.5 at some point before there was a bit of a sharp correction. But yeah, public money is all over SEC teams, so it's very rare that the only time you get value betting on the SEC teams, in my opinion, is when they're playing each other. So I'm sure I'll catch some flack from SEC fans for saying that. I mean, SEC is the best conference in football. There's no debating that, but everybody knows that. So it's priced into the line. So not a lot of value. Not a lot of value. Nobody's going to say anything. I've been on for half an hour. Probably going to bail, kick back, and watch the games. Certainly going to be watching that Nebraska-Colorado game. Like I said, I don't want to have a side in that game, but I definitely want to see it. I don't know if Shedeur Sanders can throw for 500 yards again. I don't think he can. I think Nebraska's defense is going to make his life a lot harder than it was last week against TCU. But I'm excited to see him try. And do I want to step in front of Colorado right now? Not really. Not really. You talk about the sharp money. I don't know how sharp it is stepping in front of this Colorado team right now. Honestly, we'll see. We'll see. I'm not gonna be terribly surprised either way. I guess I'd be surprised if Jeff Sims throws for 300-400 yards. That would surprise me. But barring that, nothing's going to surprise me in this game. But I'm certainly looking forward to seeing it. And if I had to make a bold prediction, I'd say, let's say 33-28 for Colorado. That's what I'm going to go, 33-28 for Colorado. Anyways, that's about it for me. Half an hour in and pretty light in the comments. Guess you guys are still sleeping. So hopefully more of you will turn up next week and give me the gears. I'm all about that. Talk to you soon.